Okay, welcome back. Now we are going to finish the suffrage movement, women's suffrage movement, and what is going to be the defining moment or the ending issue is going to be the 19th Amendment. The 19th Amendment, to amend something means to change something. So the 19th Amendment will be the passing of the 19th change to the Constitution of the United States. The 19th Amendment granted women the right to vote. And you can see in the left-hand corner, a woman's voting for the first time ever. And in 1920, the 19th Amendment was made law. So now women could vote. And you can see there was opposition. In the picture to the right, there's men that created opposition groups, which are groups that oppose or against women's suffrage. They did lose. The powers were too. The powers of the women's movement was just too powerful. Unfortunately, as we just talked about before, Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton did not actually see the day that women had the right to vote. They'd passed on in the early 1900s. Okay? Now we're going to go on to another aspect of women's feminism and suffrage. So we're finished with the women's suffrage movement. Now we're going to talk about the women's feminist movement. And one famous feminist is Margaret Sanger. Now, Margaret Sanger is seen as controversial, and we're going to talk about why she is seen as controversial. But when talking about women's feminism, the women's movement, it is really hard to not discuss what she did and what her accomplishments were, whether you see them as positive or a negative thing. Sanger was an advocate for women's right to protect their bodies. So, what really influenced her, she was a scientist, a nurse specifically. So, as a nurse, she's looking at the body, and she's worried about women's body and having control over their body, as opposed to Susan B. Anthony, who was a teacher, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. They thought women would be empowered, they had the right to vote. But what she saw is, even though women did have the right to vote, as when Sanger was around, she saw that that control of the body was a problem, and the big problem. So what she became was the leader of the birth control movement, and this changes everything. So what really influenced her, as we said before, was the fact that she was a nurse. So she was a nurse, and she worked in the impoverished neighborhood, actually probably one of the poorest areas of all of America at the time, the Lower East Side of Manhattan, which is in New York City. There she witnessed, and we're going to find these terms, the relationships between poverty and uncontrolled fertility, high infant mortality rates, maternal deaths, and this would unfortunately lead to illegal abortion. So this very impoverished area, while middle class and upper class women would have more care from a doctor and have cleaner circumstances to have children, she saw that the filth that the people lived in on the Lower East Side was just unbelievable. And we talked about during the Gilded Age and the Progressive Movement how people lived in tenants and these apartment buildings that essentially had one room with 15 or 20 people living there. And of course, these women would have money for medical care, so they wouldn't be able to just go to doctors or nurses to have children. And the consequences were horrific. The first thing was uncontrolled fertility was the cause, she argued, which meant that fertility means having children. So uncontrolled fertility would be just people having children all the time, or not controlling it at all. So one consequence was that she saw, and still today in areas where there is no controlled fertility, women will have 10, 15 children, and they're just utterly exhausted, and they cannot contain. It's very hard for them to take care of all these different children, especially without any income to support the situation or get any help. This led to high infant mortality rates. Infant being babies, mortality is living or death. So infant mortality rates is death rates. So the babies would die. They'd come out what's called stillborn, and they would not be alive. The tables would be dirty. There'd be a lot of infection, so the babies wouldn't live. And this also led to what's called maternal deaths. Maternal means mother deaths. So the mothers would die giving birth. And this is very common at the time anyway, but it would have been incredibly high in impoverished areas across America and the world. Still today, America has a pretty high maternal infant mortality rate in the Western world, as much money as we have. And one of the main causes is the fact that there are a lot of women that live far away from hospitals in America, so they can't get the help from a doctor or nurse quick enough, and that can cause the baby or the mother to pass on. And this, many women, to deal with the situation, would do it, while it was illegal at the time. They would have what were called illegal abortions, and there were fake doctors that would do this. Women would do everything from, as sad as it is, from jumping down the stairs to hurting themselves, and it was just an utter mess. But when their husbands were not concerned on how many children they had, they were. So if they couldn't stop it, they would handle it other ways. So after seeing all this, it had a huge impact on Margaret. She tried to help these women. And one of the first things she did is she went on the preventative side. And to prevent these situations from happening, she believed through education she could give them information so that they could stop having all these children. She created what are clinics, which we have all over the United States today, but at the time they were incredibly, incredibly controversial, and the male-dominated government was not excited about a woman who was having clinics where she was teaching women how to control themselves from having lots and lots of children. She would mail out facts. She would be arrested pretty regularly. She would open up a clinic in Lower East Side. They would arrest her, close it down. She would move to another part of the city, open it up, and they would close it down. It was a constant struggle. That is why, again, she's really considered a leader of the birth control movement today. At one point, she finally came to the conclusion that she's going to have to get some kind of medicine or something that women can take to stop themselves from having children, that their husband won't necessarily know what's going on. So she got some wealthier women, feminists, to put money together to hire a scientist named Gregory Pincus. Gregory and Pincus was given the money to do the research outside of Boston to invent the birth control pill, which is changes the world. There is, while it might be controversial because of people's religious beliefs, still today it is completely changed the world. The population of the world is much smaller as a result of this medicine that people can take. Women can now take medicine, so if they want to have a professional career, they want to be a doctor or a lawyer, they don't have to worry. They can be married early on, and they have to worry about having children until they're ready. The medicine's about over 99% accurate, so it's very effective. So women can go for years and years without having children until they're ready, and then they can just stop and have children. Interesting enough, the story goes that Gregory Pincus went to Margaret Sanger and said, "So you want me to make a medicine I could give the men, and they can take this medicine and they won't make any babies?" And she said, "No. I want you to make it for the woman, so the woman can control it, and they can have control over their own body." So that's why there's a strong belief within the feminist movement that women need to have control of their own bodies, and that has led to some of the controversy over birth control and abortion. So women have the right to choose versus, the man has no rights, and then that's going to lead to a lot of political controversies. You'll talk about American government. So in 1921, Sanger creates the Birth Control League, and she later became the chairperson of Planned Parenthood, which is the Federation of America, in 1942. She lived from 1879 to 1966, which is important because 60s is when birth control really changes things, where girls are not having children, not getting married as early because they feel like they have more control. Planned Parenthood is still alive and well today. We have them around St. Louis. They're all over the United States. There's a lot of controversy. What people don't understand, though, is that with the Planned Parenthood, women impoverished, people that don't have money, can go, the girls especially, could go to talk to nurses and doctors and get information on how they can not have children, take care of their children through vitamins and other reasons. And it's just a really important program. But there are some Planned Parenthoods where they have doctors that do perform abortions, and that has led to a lot of the controversy. And some people believe Margaret Sanger is kind of a villain more than a hero. Well, thank you for stopping by today, and make sure you have your notes well organized and get ready for the third and final video on the women's movement. We're going to talk about how women felt in the 50s and 60s through marriage and other ways. So thanks for coming and have a good day, guys.